5 things you should do every morning. Have you ever opened your eyes in the morning and already feel exhausted even though you haven't done anything yet? The alarm blares, but you still drag yourself out of bed with heavy steps. Before you can even take a deep breath, your hand reaches for the phone. A flood of work emails, negative news, and urgent messages demanding immediate response all crash in simultaneously. In the very first minutes of your day, you have unknowingly handed over your soul to others. You let notifications dictate your mood. You let social media define your worth. And before the sun has even risen high, you already feel drained. How many times have you promised yourself that tomorrow morning will be different, that you'll slow down, stay calm, and be in control? But in reality, you fall into the same loop day after day. And what is the result? You go through the entire day, tense, irritated, and constantly reacting instead of leading. Yet deep inside you, there's a desire that has never faded. You want to open your eyes and feel light. You want to begin the morning with peace instead of stress. You want to step into the day clearly and face whatever comes without being shaken. You don't just want to get through the day, you want to live a meaningful, intentional, and strong day. The question is, how do you turn that desire into reality? The answer doesn't lie in changing your circumstances, but in how you step into your morning. Stoic philosophy practiced daily by Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca offers us a simple and powerful key. Begin with a reminder to yourself. It may sound small, but those morning self-affirmations are like inner passwords. They set the tone for the entire day. They turn chaos into order, weakness into strength, and a wandering mind into a shining lighthouse. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, remind yourself that today you will meet selfish, ungrateful, and unpleasant people." But he didn't write this to complain. He wrote it to prepare, so that when those things happened, he wouldn't be swept away but would remain calm. Epictetus said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." If you begin your morning by shaping your perspective, the rest of your day will carry less anxiety, less fear, and more strength. And Seneca reminds us, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And you know clearly when you tend to waste the most right in the morning, when you allow yourself to sink into meaningless habits instead of preparing for a complete day. What does this mean? That each morning you face 2 clear choices: to continue sliding into the same old spiral or to stop. Take a deep breath and hand yourself a new code of conduct. You don't need 20 complicated tasks. You don't need a never-ending checklist. Just 5 sentences, 5 powerful affirmations are enough to build the foundation of your entire day. Each sentence is like a brick building the fortress of your inner life. They protect you from worry, from unnecessary anger, from toxic comparison. They give you clarity to see what matters and the strength to remain unshaken by what doesn't. In the next few minutes, we will explore the 5 things you must tell yourself every morning. These are not shallow slogans. These principles have been proven for centuries, from the Roman battlefield to modern life. And if you have the discipline to repeat them daily, you will not only begin your mornings differently, you will start to live differently. Principle 1, I am responsible for my emotions today. When we open our eyes every morning, we rarely think that we have just handed someone else the power to control our entire day. Yet most people do exactly that. A single unpleasant word from a colleague, and suddenly you're irritated, and that irritation lingers until nightfall. One forgotten message, and you immediately spiral into worry, suspicion, even anger. A single negative headline flashes across your screen, and you feel heavy, uneasy, convinced the whole day will be terrible. Your emotions hang suspended, tied to external triggers completely outside your control. You are like a small boat on a vast ocean, tossed in every direction by the waves. And each time this happens, you complain that circumstances ruin your mood, that someone else made you miserable. But have you ever asked yourself why you give that power away so easily? Why let a reckless driver decide whether you stay angry all day? Why let a stranger on the internet weigh down your heart for hours? We have grown accustomed to living in victim mode, believing our emotions are products of the outside world, that whenever someone misbehaves, we are doomed to suffer. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said that people are not disturbed by events, but by how they interpret them. At first glance, it seems simple, but the key to freedom lies within those words. Not events, not other people, not society. You are the one who decides how you feel. Picture a familiar situation you are driving to work. The weather is beautiful and your mood is fine. Suddenly, another car cuts you off, nearly causing an accident. Adrenaline spikes, your heart races. But instead of letting it pass, you start cursing, raging, carrying that anger into the office. The image of that car haunts you for the rest of the day. In that moment, that stranger behind the wheel became the master of your energy. They were in your life for seconds, yet you handed them an entire day. When you live this way, you are no longer in control of yourself. You act like your emotions were fragile glass, easily shattered by anyone. And if you continue like this, you will never be truly free. Absolute freedom isn't doing whatever you want, whenever you want. Absolute freedom begins when you master your own mind. Try telling yourself, I am responsible for my emotions today. The phrase may sound gentle, but behind it is a powerful declaration. It is like the Declaration of Independence for your soul, cutting the strings that tie you to the outside world. By saying it, you affirm that no venomous word, chaotic news, or indifference can dictate your mood. Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and survivor of Nazi concentration camps, once wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." Notice he wrote this inside a camp where brutality was everywhere, where dignity and liberty were stripped away. Yet even in that hell, he found one small space no one could touch: the freedom to choose his attitude. If he could do it there, you can do it here. Practicing this each morning is a powerful start. When you wake up, place your hand on your chest, take a deep breath and say aloud, I am responsible for my emotions today. Say it slowly, firmly, with conviction. At first, it may feel awkward, even hollow. But remember, every habit begins this way. Like working out, the first sessions don't show muscle growth, but each repetition carves the principle deeper into your mind. During the day, whenever someone offends you or an unexpected challenge appears, pause. Instead of reacting instantly, breathe deeply and recall your morning affirmation. Ask yourself, am I choosing this reaction? That small question is enough to pull you out of automatic reflex mode. Gradually, you'll realize you can choose not to get angry, worry, or become negative. Of course, this path isn't easy. Blaming others is always easier. It's easy to say, I'm angry because my boss is terrible. I'm sad because my partner is careless. I'm stressed because of all the work. But those are excuses. The problem is not your boss, partner, or workload. The problem is your expectation that everything should go your way. When reality breaks that expectation, you feel betrayed. Stoicism teaches give up control over what lies outside your reach and focus on the one thing you can truly govern your response. When you genuinely live by this principle, you'll discover a different kind of freedom. People may be rude, yet you remain calm. Work may pile up, yet you don't let it consume your mind. Life may hit you with shocks, yet you no longer collapse as before. You begin to feel a space within a sacred ground no one else can invade. To train this, keep a journal at night. Write down one situation where you controlled your emotions well and one where you didn't. Not to criticize yourself, but to observe and learn. By noticing both your progress and your weak points, you are building new awareness and mental muscle. With persistence, you will see a profound change. You will no longer be someone easily pulled into the spiral of negativity. You will no longer let your mood be dictated by a headline, a careless remark, or another person's thoughtless behavior. You will begin reacting less and acting more. You will start living proactively instead of reactively. And that is the path to true peace. You'll find yourself standing firmer once you learn to take responsibility for your emotions. But that's only the beginning. Because after you gain control, you must also learn to protect it. It's not just about taking responsibility, but about keeping that peace untouched. And that leads us to the next step. Nothing can disturb your peace unless you allow it. Principle 2. Nothing can disturb my peace unless I allow it. Once you have stepped through the first door, daring to take responsibility for your emotions, you will feel like someone who has regained ownership of their inner home. But a house, no matter how solidly built, will soon fall into chaos if its doors are left open for anyone to walk in. Peace is the same. It doesn't stay on its own. It must be guarded, protected. It needs a conscious gatekeeper, and that gatekeeper is you. Imagine your mind as a fortress. Inside this fortress lie your peace, clarity, faith, and strength. Outside are endless noises, criticisms, chaotic news pressures from work people's comments and even envy. If you open the gates for all of them to enter, the peace inside will soon be shattered. But if you stand at the entrance clearly, deciding who is allowed to pass and who is not, your fortress will remain strong no matter how loud the outside world becomes. The problem is that most of us don't do this. We let any word, action, or situation slip into our minds. We read a negative comment online and it haunts us all day. We hear a careless remark from a loved one which ruins our dinner. We see someone succeed and envy sneaks in, burning away our gratitude. We live as if peace were public property, open for anyone to enter or destroy. But the truth is different. Peace is private property, which can only be stolen when you forget to lock the door. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." His words remind us that no event has the power to break you unless you allow it to come in. Think back to the last time you got angry. Maybe someone insulted you or a colleague dismissed your effort. Rage surged, your blood boiled. But what really made you lose your cool? Was it their words or how you allowed them to stay in your head, repeating like a sharp needle piercing your heart? If you hadn't allowed it, if you had treated it like a passing breeze, it would have vanished like clouds. But because you let it in, it stayed, grew, and eventually claimed peace. So the lesson here is not to avoid all negativity. You cannot. This world is full of selfish people, cruel words, and unexpected events. You cannot control them, but you can control your gate. You can choose not to let those things take over your mind. Practicing this isn't easy. It requires patience and daily self-observation. Each morning when you say, "Nothing can disturb my peace unless I allow it," treat it as the oath of a gatekeeper. You are committing that today you will stay alert to every word and every event and allow only what has value and nourishment to pass through your gate. For example, recall your oath instead of reacting instantly when a colleague makes a sarcastic remark. Ask yourself, do I allow this comment to ruin my mood? Do I want to hand over control to them? When you become aware of this, you realize you have a choice: open or keep the gate closed. And in that choice, you find strength. Once you train this habit, you become steadier than anyone else. You walk into a room full of arguments, yet you remain calm. You hear chaotic news outside, yet you stay focused. You face failure, yet it no longer has the power to drown you. Others may find you strange, even call you cold, but you are protecting your sacred ground within. And that ground is where clarity, kindness, and courage are born. The modern world tempts you constantly to open the gate. Social media demands reactions to every update. Ads push you to chase new desires. Drama stories lure you into endless debates. But remember, each time you give in, you open your fortress and invite chaos inside. And each time you refuse, you build another layer of discipline, another wall of strength. This doesn't mean you must become numb or ignore everything. On the contrary, it helps you love and act more consciously. You can respond clearly when you are not swept into other storms. When you keep your peace, you can truly listen, understand, and help. A person drowning in anger cannot pull anyone else out of anger. Only the one who keeps peace can become a refuge for others. Think of peace as a flame in your heart. The wind outside may blow strongly, but you are cupping your hands around it. If you don't protect it, the wind will extinguish it. But if you shield it, the flame will keep burning, lighting your way and the way of those around you. This habit must be renewed daily. A simple practice each morning: stand before the mirror, look straight into your eyes and repeat, "Nothing can disturb my peace unless I allow it." During the day, write it on a small note. Keep it in your wallet, stick it on your computer screen, or set it on your phone. Whenever your mind wants to flare with anger or sink into worry, re-rate it. That reminder is like a bell calling you back, like a guard telling you the gate is still closed. Don't let anyone break in. As you practice, you will see differences in every relationship. You no longer get triggered by others' judgments. You no longer feel the need to respond to every attack. Gradually, you become a mirror for others to look at. They will wonder why you remain calm when everything around you is chaos. They will feel the steadiness radiating from you and come to you when they need safety. That is the power of someone who guards their peace. And then once you develop this habit of guarding peace, you will discover another truth: you cannot control everything. You cannot control other people. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control the markets. You cannot control every outcome in life. You can only control yourself. And that is the third key, the key to moving forward on this journey of mastering your mornings and your life. Focus only on what you can truly control. Principle 3. Today I will focus only on what I can control. Nothing drains a person faster than clinging to things that were never understood. We get upset because it rains on an important day. We feel heavy because someone misunderstood us. We grow anxious over economic, political, or social upheavals we cannot change. The whole day passes in a spiral of unease, worry, and anger, and in the end, the one thing we could control ourselves is what we neglect. Stoicism teaches a fundamental principle: draw a clear line between what is in your control and what is not. Epictetus once said that life can be divided into two categories: the things we master and the things we are powerless over. Our thoughts, words, actions, efforts, and responses are in the first category. The second is the whether other people's opinions, the past already gone, the future not yet arrived, and every event beyond our will. If we spend most of our energy trying to control that second category, disappointment is inevitable. But if we stay awake and choose to focus on the first, everything changes. Picture this: you step outside and it suddenly rains. If you curse the sky in anger, the rain will not stop. But if you accept you cannot control the weather, you can grab an umbrella, put on a raincoat, or smile and walk on. The rain still falls, but you are no longer its victim. You use the power of your response to stay in command. The modern world makes us blur these two categories. News feeds bombard us every minute with global market shifts. Social media makes us care about the opinions of thousands of strangers. Work changes constantly because of decisions made by higher-ups we cannot influence. Like a glass that can only hold so much, our mind is filled to the brim with things far beyond our reach. So when it comes time to summon strength for ourselves, our families, or real responsibilities, there is no space left. Picture a set of circles before you. The small circle in the center contains everything you truly control: your thoughts, words, actions, and reactions. The larger circle around it holds what you can only influence indirectly: your family's emotions, your team's performance, your household's finances. Beyond that lies the vast ocean wars, the global economy, the endless stream of news, other people's choices. You will feel powerless if you place 80% of your attention on that outer ocean. But if you return to the small circle, you begin to reclaim strength. This doesn't mean ignoring the world. On the contrary, knowing you can only control a few things teaches you to direct your full energy where it counts. You cannot change everyone's opinion of you, but you can live sincerely and consistently knowing you have acted rightly. You cannot guarantee the stock market will rise, but you can control your spending, saving, and disciplined investing. You cannot stop people from speaking ill, but you can choose to respond calmly instead of with anger. Looking back on life, you'll see most of our inner pain comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. We want others to love us in the exact way we expect. We want everything to unfold on our schedule. We want a future free of surprises. But life never follows our script. People change. Accidents happen. The future is always uncertain. The more we cling to this illusion of control, the longer we suffer. But when we release it, when we accept, we find freedom. Here's the irony: when you focus on what is within your control, you have greater influence on what is not. For example, you cannot control your children's thoughts, but you can control how you speak, listen, and model behavior. And those very things profoundly shape how they grow. You cannot control the economy, but you can control your learning skills and relationships, and those allow you to adapt to any climate. The paradox is this: the more you chase what you cannot control, the weaker you feel. The more you focus on what is in your hands, the more real influence you create. Think of the small moments of daily life. You're stuck in traffic. If you scream, slam the wheel, nothing moves. You lose both calm and energy. But if you accept you cannot make the cars vanish, you can put on music, listen to a podcast, or breathe. Suddenly, a suffocating moment becomes an opportunity to learn or relax. The event didn't change, but the experience did, because you chose to focus rightly. Each morning when you tell yourself, "Today I will focus only on what I can control," you are handing yourself a map. That map marks the boundary between the land you own and the wilderness beyond. It stops you from wasting time building fences on ground that never belonged to you. It calls you back to the small but precious territory yourself. And from that land, you can plant, cultivate, build, until over time, your influence spreads outward. In today's unstable world, the one who focuses on what they can control becomes an anchor for others. When everyone panics over bad news, you stay calm. When others rush with the crowd, you walk steadily. When people complain about what lies beyond reach, you remind them of what can be done. You not only save yourself, you inspire those around you. But be careful, focusing on what you control doesn't mean shrinking into selfishness. It is the foundation for proper action. Because only when you draw strength from within can you help the world outside. If your mind is scattered chasing what you can't command, you will be useless to others. But when you are steady in yourself, you become a source of strength for them. So practicing this phrase each morning is like strapping on a shield. When others throw criticism at you, when sudden events strike, the shield reminds you, this is not within my control, but my response is. And because of that, you walk forward unafraid. Focusing on what you can control is also the cure for the most common disease of our age: anxiety about the future. How long have you lain awake spinning scenarios of what might happen? And the next day, almost none of those scenarios came true. You wasted hours, days on visions that never existed. Instead, if you pour that energy into preparing skills, attitude, flexibility, the things you control, you'll feel far more at peace. Look back and you'll find every Stoic philosopher, from Marcus Aurelius to Seneca to Epictetus, said the same thing: distinguish what is within your grasp from what is not. That distinction decides whether you live as a victim or as a warrior. And each morning when you repeat this phrase, you choose to be a warrior. A new question arises: if I don't let external results define me, then where does my value come from? If I only focus on what is in my control today, do success and failure still matter? That is the following key. The next thing you must remind yourself of each morning: my worth is never measured by the outcome of a single day. Principle 4, my worth does not depend on today's results. We live in a world obsessed with results. Every morning you're reminded that your worth is tied to what you achieve that day. Some measure it by the money in their account, some by the number of likes on social media, some by recognition from their boss or peers. Society whispers like a giant machine. You only have value when you win, when you complete, when you prove. And because people believe that, many begin their day with anxiety, feeling as if their very being is on trial, waiting for the verdict of today's outcome. But what is the truth? The truth is that your worth is not tied to the outcome of a single day. It does not vanish when you fail, but automatically increases when you succeed. Your worth lies in your very being, the way you exist, and the dignity no one can take away. Seneca once wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." He knew results are fleeting moments, but intrinsic value rises above all ups and downs. Remember when you achieved something big, winning an award, signing a contract, or completing an important goal? The joy lasted a few hours, maybe a few days, then faded. You returned to worry, can I do it again tomorrow? And when you failed, when the outcome wasn't what you hoped, you might have plunged into self-doubt, believing you were worthless. That is the endless swing when you tie your worth to results. You become a pendulum, swinging between euphoria and despair, unable to stand firm. Stoicism teaches separate effort from worth. Effort is what you control: your actions, your attitude, your persistence. Results are beyond your control, shaped by countless factors: timing, luck, others, choices, and sudden events. When you place your worth in results, you hand the key to your life to the world. But you become untouchable when you root your worth in essence, in the way you choose to live with integrity. Imagine an artist. If he believes his worth lies in how much his painting sells for, he will live in constant insecurity because price depends on the market taste and luck. But if he knows his worth lies in pouring his soul into every brushstroke, in believing he has lived true to his art, then whether the painting sells or not, his worth remains intact. This doesn't mean you stop caring about results. You can still desire success and strive for goals. But the difference is, you don't let results define who you are. You can rejoice in victory without arrogance, grieve in failure without despair. You know your worth is constant before and after every outcome. Each morning when you tell yourself, "My worth does not depend on today's results," you free yourself from invisible trials. You remind yourself, "I may fail today, but that does not make me less worthy. I may succeed, but success does not make me more valuable than others. I am worthy because I am me, a person striving to live uprightly with character and courage." You may wonder, but if I don't measure myself by results, won't I lose motivation? The truth is the opposite. You finally work in freedom when you're no longer obsessed with proving worth. You become more creative because you're not afraid of mistakes. You become more persistent because failure is no longer a sentence, only a lesson. You begin to enjoy the process instead of anxiously waiting for the destination. That freedom is the only sustainable motivation that cannot be broken by a single bad day. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "If you seek tranquility, do less, or rather do what's essential." He understood his worth wasn't in applause or criticism. He was an emperor, yet also a man, and his worth came from living with virtue, not fame. That is also the lesson for you. You don't need to be an emperor to know you are already enough. Practice this in the morning. Before stepping into a demanding day, stand before the mirror and say, "I will do my best. I will give focus, integrity, and persistence. But my worth is not defined by today's results. I am already worthy even if I fail." Let those words sink into your mind, reminding you that you no longer live as a hostage of success or failure. In reality, countless examples prove this. An athlete may lose a match, but the courage of years of training does not disappear. A father may lose his job, but his love for his children remains intact. An artist may be criticized, but his honesty in creation is untouched. Results are moments. Worth is the whole journey. And this is the power Stoicism gives. It teaches you to stand firm in the storm of results to keep your soul from being swept away. You become a tree with deep roots, not a leaf carried off by the wind. You are the master of yourself, not a prisoner of success or failure. If you live this way, each day becomes lighter. You enter challenges with calm. You enjoy small joys without fear. They will vanish. You face failure without losing faith. And above all, you know this, you are always enough, always worthy, no matter what today brings. This is the foundation for the next step action. Because once you no longer fear that failure erases your worth, you finally dare to move forward. When you know you are enough, you gain the courage to try, fail, learn, and begin again. Principle 4 reminds you that you already have value. And from that foundation, you step into Principle 5 with an even stronger commitment. I will act, not just intend. For Principle 5, I will act, not just intend. There is an invisible but vast gap between intention and action. Everyone knows this gap. Everyone has stood at its edge saying, tomorrow I'll begin. We carry great ideas and big plans, and we whisper promises in our heads. And yet day after day, those intentions stay on paper in dreams, in thoughts never crossing into reality. Be honest, how many times have you intended to exercise but ended up lying in bed scrolling through your phone for another half hour? How often have you intended to call a loved one and reconnect only to let it slide until time widens the distance? How usually have you planned to write a page, start a project, learn a skill yet postpone because the right time hadn't come? Dreams die young because intentions never become actions. Marcus Aurelius used to remind himself each morning, when you are reluctant to rise, think of the work you are meant to do as a human being. You were not born to lie in bed, but to act. This emperor did not allow himself to live in the world of intentions. He knew virtue, discipline, and integrity were not in promises, but in daily actions. Stoicism makes this point plain. Knowledge is not enough, you must live it. Intention is not enough, you must make it real. Modern people often get stuck in the illusion of preparation. They love making plans, writing notes, and reading another book to feel they are moving forward. But the truth is, no plan or idea has value unless executed. A perfect plan left undone loses to a small action that is done. Think of the dreams you hold. You may want better health, a stronger career, or a better parent. These will remain intentions unless you begin today. One short run beats imagining a marathon. One paragraph beats dreaming of a book. One phone call beats regretting a broken relationship. What keeps us from acting is often fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. But remember, failing while acting is better than failing in silence. When you act, you learn. When you only intend, you erode your own confidence. Stoicism teaches that action is the only growth path. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." This is not only a call to speak less, it is a demand to turn belief into movement. If you believe you want change, change when you can. If you think you are responsible for your life, take a concrete step. Modern science calls this implementation intention. It means you don't just say, I want to exercise. You say, at 6 a.m. tomorrow, I will walk 20 minutes in the park. You don't just say, I will write a book. You say, tonight after dinner, I will write 500 words. When intentions are tied to specific actions, the chance of follow-through rises dramatically. So each morning when you tell yourself, I will act, not just intend, tie it to one clear thing you will do today. It doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be grand. It only needs to be clear and real. You'll be surprised at how one small action sparks new momentum, just as one brick laid invites the next. Remember, the world is not built on intentions. It is built on actions. Bridges, books, businesses, movements all began with one first act. Those who change the world are not those with ideas alone, but those who dare to act on them. This is just as true in personal life. a happy relationship doesn't come from the intention, "I'll love more," but from small actions, a thoughtful text, a hug, a timely apology. A healthy body doesn't come from the intention, "I'll eat well," but from real actions, choosing one better meal, one glass of water instead of a soda. When you act, you send a powerful signal to yourself, "I can be trusted." Each time you follow through, you strengthen belief in your own reliability. Each time you stop at intention, you weaken it. That's why some people feel powerless, because too many times they betrayed themselves by staying in intention only. Look at history. The great Stoics were not philosophers locked in ivory towers. They were people of action. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal while leading an empire through crisis. Seneca wrote essays while navigating the brutal politics of Rome. Epictetus, though an enslaved person, taught hundreds by the disciplined example of his life. Their philosophy was not for idle thought, but for action and living. Every morning when you tell yourself, "I will act," not just intend, treat it as a sacred vow. You are promising yourself that today will not pass in idle dreaming. You will do one thing, however small, that moves you closer to who you want to become. You can start with actions so small they cannot fail. If you want to exercise, start with 5 minutes of walking. If you're going to write one paragraph. If you want to build a business, share your idea with one friend. Remember, 5 minutes of real action always beats 5 hours of daydreaming. And above all, remember this action is the only bridge that makes the other 4 principles real. Without action, taking responsibility for your emotions is useless. Without action, guarding your peace is meaningless. Without an action, focusing on what you control stays theoretical. Without action, believing in your worth remains just words. Only action builds the bridge between belief and reality. Here is where the 5 principles come together as one picture. The first 4 lay the foundation: responsibility, peace, focus, and intrinsic worth. But all of it remains only a thought without the 5th action. Action is the door to reality. It is the heartbeat of the entire system. So when you end your morning with the reminder, "I will act," not just intend, you complete the circle. You join belief to movement, philosophy to reality. And from here, we will look back to see how all 5 together create strength, turning your mornings into the solid foundation for your entire life. When you look back at the entire journey we've just walked through, you may realize a vital truth. The morning is not only the start of a day, but a mirror reflecting how you will live your entire life. The 5 things you tell yourself each morning are 5 keys that unlock the doors of your inner world, carrying you from being swept away to standing in command. The first, "I am responsible for my emotions today," teaches you that you don't need to wait for circumstances to change to find peace. Joy, calm, or anger all come from how you respond. Once you accept this control, you step out of the role of victim and into the role of leader of yourself. This is the foundation for living free in your mind, no longer bound by the weather, a text message, or someone else's actions. The second, "Nothing can disturb my peace unless I allow it," is like building walls around your inner fortress. Many live with their gates wide open, letting anyone throw in criticism, comparisons, or negativity. But when you remind yourself each morning that peace is sacred ground, you begin to filter. You can listen and observe, but not everything earns the right to stay in your mind. This isn't coldness, it is clarity. You know what to keep and what to release. The third, "Today I will focus only on what I can control," is how you preserve your precious energy. Instead of scattering it everywhere, worrying about things you can never reach, you bring your focus back to what is in your hands, your actions, your words, your thoughts, your attitude. These are truly yours. This is the core Stoic principle and the way out of the constant spiral of unease. The fourth, "Today's results do not define my worth," reminds you that you are not a report, not a tally of wins and losses. You have worth even on the days you stumble, because that worth lies in your essence, in how you live, not in outward achievements. Separating effort from identity is the secret to chasing excellence while preserving self-respect and self-love. And finally, the fifth, I will act, not just intend, turns philosophy into reality. Knowing isn't enough. Wanting isn't enough. You must move. Countless dreams have died in thought, and numerous plans have stayed on paper because of the lack of one action. This morning reminder helps you cross the gap between desire and result, turning you from a spectator into the main character of your own life. When you connect on all five, you see a clear picture. These are not scattered pieces, but a system. You take responsibility for commanding your emotions. You guard your peace to hold your foundation. You focus on what's in your control to keep clarity. You detach from results so you stay steady. And finally, you act to make all of it real. From the perspective of someone who has lived these truths, I can tell you the most significant difference between those who stay stuck in cycles and those who truly change is discipline in applying these principles daily. You don't need complexity. You don't need perfection. You need persistence. Greatness does not come from a single explosive moment, but from small choices repeated until they become part of who you are. Here is the lesson: you cannot choose everything that happens in life, but you can always choose how you begin a day. And when you start the right way, the rest of the day and the rest of your life will move in a different direction. And now the choice is yours. You can close the screen and let today slip by like every other day. Or you can begin tomorrow morning by speaking these 5 reminders to yourself and watch how life shifts. Don't wait another week, another month, another year. Change doesn't begin on some vague tomorrow. It starts when you decide. If this message resonates with you, comment, which of the 5 will you choose to practice starting tomorrow? I want to hear your answer, because when you speak it out loud, you are not only committing yourself, you are inspiring others who are walking this same path. Share this video with a friend, a coworker, or anyone you know who needs this reminder. Sometimes a single sentence in the morning saves an entire day or even an entire life. And don't forget to subscribe to Sovereign Stoic, because we are building a community of people who are steady, self-directed, and living with inner strength. Each week, you'll gain new tools, stories, and principles to fortify your mind so that you don't just survive, you truly live with power. Remember, you cannot control yesterday or know tomorrow, but you can always master this morning. And when you master the morning, you master your life.